Our next artwork is the Ara Pacis Augustae. Now let's translate that from the Latin. Ara is Latin for altar, Pacis, peace, Augustae, Augustus. So this is an altar dedicated to Augustine peace, which is why I kept the vocabulary term here. Pax Romana, Pax Augustae, this time in the Roman Empire defined as a time of peace and harmony. The altar here is meant to continue the peace that was established in the time of Augustus. It is a massive altar, and it's surrounded on all four sides. It's carved of marble. This marble is called Carrara marble. It comes from an area in northern Italy, Carrara, and it's still a marble source today. So we have this very heavy, very expensive marble that has been carted down to the city of Rome, the capital of the empire, and it was an altar used for official state sacrifices. We're going to look in and around the altar and understand the connection between this sacred altar where you would sacrifice to the gods and what it means to the people of Rome and who participates in this state-funded or government-funded sacrifice. Okay? Here's another view of it as it sits inside of a museum now. So here we are looking at that front staircase. There's a platform, and then on that raised platform or podium, we see an opening. That's the front of the altar, and then you look into, and inside is the official space where the sacrifices would be laid out. The altar was or is still very close to its original location in the city of Rome. Let me zoom out just a bit so you can see what I'm talking about here. So we were just standing inside this museum. It's a very fancy new museum, and it's designed by a famous architect named Richard Meyer. If you're into architecture, you would know him. But the original placement of it was just closer to the left, closer to the river that runs through the city of Rome. The river is called the Tiber River, and it was placed there, and it was moved from that location because the Tiber River will sometimes flood, and we didn't want to damage the altar. So it was moved just kind of slightly in from its original location, and then now it's housed in this excuse me, very big, very beautiful museum. I would say when you go to Rome, I would like for you to visit the museum and see this in person. I didn't because I remember the ticket price being kind of expensive for what I was willing to spend as a younger art historian, and so instead I just stood right next to the window and I peeked inside and looked in from the window. But I would appreciate if one of you would go into the Ara Pacis Museum. They also have a lot of other cool stuff around, and then give me a video of walking in and around this. I don't think you can go inside of it, but you know what I mean. Okay, I'm getting sidetracked. What we see here is the front of it, and we see the remains of the marble sculptures that decorated the inside and outside of this piece. What we're missing is the color. It was originally painted. So here we are looking at an artist rendering of how it was originally decorated. What we see very clearly is that the bottom frieze was of this beautiful vegetation. We have these thick vines and leaves and flowers and birds and animals, and they are all swarming around the bottom element of this. The top frieze has portraits of gods and goddesses. We'll look at one of them in particular. And then on the either side of the entrance, were these portraits of official Roman leaders, senators, magistrates, and they're all here in attendance as if they are to observe the official sacrifices that are taking place at this altar. Now, I want to emphasize again, this is an official state altar, so it's not like you can just walk up and leave your little sacrifice or little gift or offering here. No, 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 no. That is very dangerous. You could be arrested and killed for treason against Rome because they see this as a very clear connection. Happy gods, happy Romans. So you can't just go in there and do your own thing because you might insult the gods and then therefore jeopardize all of our safety. So this is a state-controlled altar space. And we see on either side of the entrance a procession or parade of state officials who are observing this sacrifice. All right. Here's a zoom-in view of some of those people. So again, we're missing the paint, but we see these clearly individualized figures, and they are standing as if they're waiting here with us in front of the altar. Some of them have brought their kids, specifically their sons, with them. If we walk inside, the inside surrounding the four walls was decorated with these carved elements of greenery, or what we would call boughs, B-O-U-G-H-S. These boughs of greenery were symbolic of the actual decorations. You would pull evergreen leaves, from pine trees, cypress trees. You'd pull different symbolic leaves like laurels that symbolize Apollo, and then you'd bunch them all together into these long strings, and then you'd hang them up. We still do this system of evergreens or decoration, smells, the idea that they present some kind of guard against evil. That's the same symbolism we see here in these carved boughs of evergreen that line around the interior of the altar space. And then they're pinned or hung up with these cow skulls. Why cow skulls? Well, the sacrifices here at the altar include cows. And so we have these skulls of past successful sacrifices, right? And imagine bringing up of this large bull into this space to be slaughtered here on the altar. The Romans, they think of everything, right? They're so efficient. Can you see how it's open above? There's no roof to this altar. Can you see that? I mention the slaughtering of the bulls because check it out. That's a drainage hole for the blood. The blood of the cow to be drained out. Also, it's an open altar, so it's going to get rain in it, and that rain's got to drain out. So there it is. Those are drainage holes. The Romans, they're very efficient. They try to think of everything, right? So we have this massive altar that is there to ensure Augustean peace, Pax Romana. And imagine being a part of these festivals, these processions that would go through the city, the capital city of Rome, and they would end here. Now, the official priests would be doing the sacrifice within this space, and the ceremony would be conducted not only in this space, but in this capital and right there on the Tiber River. What am I looking for? This picture here. So the sacrifice would be happening here. And then on the opposite side of the entrance, there's a window. There's another space. You see it? Right here. Here's a good view of it. Here. So there's another opening. It's a window. So again, imagine this is placed right at the edge of the Tiber River, the river that runs through the capital city. And just beyond the river would be the countryside. It would be the land of Rome. It would be the empire. So standing here, performing the sacrifices, you are then looking out into Rome and ensuring the peace and protection of the Roman territory just beyond this altar. Very powerful, right? Now let's look at here. Here we are looking at the side, and this is that royal procession. You can see very clear connections to Greek architecture, can't you? You see the meander going through. That's so Greek, right? And then these square pillars here, you could call them engaged pillars, and they're decorated with capitals that have acanthus leaves. They're like Corinthian capitals. Let's see. Look at this one here. This is just a diagram of the altar itself. Here's the front. There's that window. The procession of the nobility, the governing bodies of Rome on either side. And then we're going to look at this panel right here. This is Tellus. And we're going to look at her, the goddess Tellus, in our next video.